And we're back with the show. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Well, with everything going on, D23, Star Trek Day, Disney Plus Day, Cobra Kai Season 5, NBA 2K23, Splatoon 3, a whole ton of stuff going on. I still had to go ahead and make some time for the state of pro wrestling, sort of an abbreviated version, because we're going to go ahead and still talk about what's going on because it was kind of slow this past weekend. Nothing really happened for AEW and WWE. Really kind of boring. No, I'm just kidding. A lot happened for AEW and WWE in one of the momentous weekends in a long time for this pro wrestling battle. And with all due respect to ROH, Impact, MLW, GCW, anybody else that's out there, WoW, anybody else that's out there, the focus is squarely on AEW and WWE, and not necessarily for all the right reasons. But here today to talk about all the juicy stuff that I love to hear about behind the scenes of pro wrestling. It's a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the PVD Cast. Find my appearances on the show, plus his latest interviews right there for you at thepvdcast.com. It is our pro wrestling expert indeed. Our pro wrestling expert extraordinaire is here. It is John Orlando.
Extraordinaire.
I find something good and juicy each and every time to call you. So, Mr. Orlando, welcome back. Truly
Thank you,
appreciate
Gerald.
it, John. Okay, like I said, nothing really happened over the past weekend with Clash at the Castle for WWE and AEW All Out. Nothing happened really, did it?
Nah, it's pretty slow. I don't even know what I'm doing here.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. But we can't even talk about NXT's latest takeover, man, because nothing really momentous happened there, even though they're sort of combining some of the lower card WWE wrestlers back again and mixing that is making it a little bit more interesting of a product. Triple H has his hands now all over the creative juices that are flowing with WWE. WWE in the past several weeks has improved in their quality of storytelling, but most importantly, as far as the matches are concerned, Clash at the Castle was one of the most well-received cards in a long time for the company. Before we get to all the juicy details that are going on across the way at AEW, tell me your thoughts of what's going on with WWE. Again, really, right now, since the departure of Vince McMahon, we thought it would be kind of a slow burn. We commented on it around the time of what was happening. It's kind of a slow burn as far as Triple H gaining more and more control of the product. And with all the returns that are now happening in the WWE, and with all the good matches and the good content now in WWE, it is finally good to say that you're a WWE fan once again.
the rumor has been that several individuals that maybe were there a year ago or 6 months ago or whatnot is very excited at the possibility of maybe returning back to the WWE. I think that Triple H has breathed new air, breathed new life, into WWE. I think the fans have taken to it. I think that the fact that you have all these people returning. I mean, you know what? Clash at the Castle, huge event. I actually didn't watch it. I'm going to be honest. I didn't watch it because I didn't think anything was going to happen. I really didn't, Gerald.
But
and
quality match after quality match after quality match after quality match. You can still catch it now on Peacock at any point in time. So if you got a Peacock subscription, go ahead and check it out. I highly recommend it. Really solid matches. I know that not all my favorites are getting the push right now, but I will leave that aside because it is good storytelling. It is compelling. It is actually fun to watch. And most importantly, it leads into quality matches, which is the key right here. You're not getting dud after dud after dud with maybe one good match mixed in the middle. You're getting 5, 6 quality matches each and every time out. And that's for years what I've been saying as a WWE fan I want to see.
And I agree wholeheartedly. And here's the other thing that makes me want to watch Raw, it makes me want to watch SmackDown is it's surprise-a-palooza. You never know who's going to return. I, I didn't think Braun Strowman last night on Monday Night Raw would show up, and there you go. There's somebody that
Mhm.
shows up back in the fold. Uh,
Dexter Loomis in recent weeks.
Dexter Loomis, though I'm not a fan of that character, but he is doing different stuff, doing some really good character work with the Miz. I'm not a huge fan of the character, but
Hit Row came back to SmackDown.
Hit Row as well coming back. Johnny Gargano next week returns to Raw.
Yep.
So all these people who are incredibly talented, who clearly Triple H likes, is bringing them back, and I think that's going to make the product better. I agree. I think that the storytelling has been quite a bit better as well over these last few weeks.
It's
Uh,
not perfect, but it is in the right direction.
Yeah, agreed. I personally you talk about maybe not being perfect. I personally would have liked to seen Dominic Mysterio change and turn heel a month or so ago, but okay, so we're getting to it, and I think that that's still a very intriguing storyline in itself. So yeah, I think that the WWE is turning the corner, and hopefully, and I'm excited for it. Now, if we can just continue on that track and maybe help out with the third brand NXT because I still think that that's the weakest links as
And
of
I
right
think they're
now.
starting to. Like I
I
said,
think so. Yeah.
they're sending mid to lower card WWE wrestlers back there to go ahead and compete on a regular basis in the NXT. And I think that's filling out that roster a little bit more. They're no longer pressured by the fact that they're competing head to head with AEW's Dynamite, so that allows them to go ahead and grow their product. The NXT wrestlers are gaining experience. The younger ones are gaining experience because they're now able to go ahead and compete against more seasoned veterans of the WWE, like Ricochet, like Nikki Ash, Dewdrop, other individuals, Finn Balor coming back. You know, those individuals heading down to NXT. Yes, it might be a step down, but it looks like they're more willing to do it than they have in years gone by.
It's worked well for Mandy Rose.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
honestly, I didn't care about Mandy Rose at all when she was on the main roster. Now she is a focal point of who I want to see when I tune into NXT 2.0.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, my friend. It is now becoming a more watchable product overall. It is heading in the right direction. Both shows are now consistently above the 2 million mark as far as viewing, which is something we have been able to say too much has been hovering, especially on Raw, hovering right around 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 for a while. And now they're back up to around 2 million viewers, which is a good sign. And the SmackDown on Friday nights is actually moving up even more just before football. We'll see what happens now because
Mm-hmm.
NFL hits this week. So that may change the landscape of everything. But it is very interesting to see. Yes, I know Roman Reigns has still been champion for 2 years, and there's really no viable contender right now that moves the needle enough for me or moves the needle enough for anybody out there. I think that gets enough interest to say, you know what, let's go ahead and take that belt off him until Cody Rhodes comes back, or some maybe a couple other options could come through the woodwork. But at least right now, underneath everything, underneath the main programs are really working and really clicking, and that's something I like to see.
And I'll say this: I think that they did a great job with that package, the SmackDown before the pay per view,
Mm-hmm.
where they highlighted all the people. And you've been a fan just as long as I have, maybe even longer. When you are talking about, Bruno Sammartino wearing that title for 4 or 5 years, Hogan had it for 4 or 5 years. Like there's something we don't see that anymore, and I think that's the one thing to me that's refreshing about this Roman Reigns run is that yes, I know they got to build somebody, they haven't done that, but to me, I look back and I go, this is cool. This is cool that somebody holds on to that belt because anymore, titles don't mean anything. You know, they bounce around so quickly from,
Well, it's
one
just I
person to
don't
another
think there's
person to the next.
anybody. I think it's just a case where there's nobody that's at his level right now,
Right.
as far as
True.
creatively speaking. I just don't think
Hmm.
there's anyone at his level. I don't even think a CM Punk or someone could come in from AEW, maybe outside of Cody Rhodes. We'll see what kind of bump up Cody Rhodes has with the crowd when he comes back from his injury. We'll see if that magic is still there like it was before he left. Maybe because of the circumstances of him tearing his bicep and him working with that torn bicep is still fresh enough for people to go ahead and stay behind him. But we'll see. Again,
Hmm.
I don't see any real viable contender. Don't rehash Goldberg. Don't rehash Brock Lesnar. Don't do those rehashes because they're not working for me anymore. Just go ahead and you know what, you can almost, like you said, the opposite of what Hogan did, where there was a new villain every 2 months recycled for Hogan. You could do the same as far as a good guy for Roman Reigns. So it may not be as successful as everyone likes, but I don't see again Roman Reigns being challenged at least anytime soon, at least not until maybe Royal Rumble, but I would probably say WrestleMania at the earliest.
Yeah, because I don't know how much more time is on the clock, so to speak, for Cody to be out.
Yeah.
Um, I imagine he's still got quite a few months. There's nothing wrong with feeding people to Roman Reigns, just as you said. I mean, think how cool it would be if somehow Sami Zayn gets double crossed by the Usos and Roman, and we forgot there's a new member to the bloodline as well, as we
Yep.
saw Solo Sakura, who came up from
Yes.
NXT, which that's really cool too. I thought that was a very unique way to end that match on the pay
Absolutely,
per
and he's
view.
part of the bloodline, so there you
Yeah,
go, the
yeah.
actual true bloodline. So that's great, absolutely great story. Still wish they would go ahead and combine the titles. I understand Damage Control is hot right now for them in the WWE. I know Liv Morgan actually had a really good match, which I've told you in the past. I'm not sure she's always able to go ahead and bring out for you, but she did find a good dance partner on Saturday. So really happy to see for the fans of her that they went ahead and really got a good performance from her. Bianca Belair got pinned by Bailey, so that sets up that angle. But they really need to combine and unify that title. I'm still telling you, if the men's title can be unified, the women's title needs to be unified. If the women's tag title is unified and the men's tag title is unified, the women's title sticks out like a sore thumb. But outside of that, I think it's working right now for Triple H and his efforts to try and make a better product. I think it's worked, and I think it just shows everyone out there how stagnant and how behind the times the WWE was, as you and I have been saying for years, under the auspices of Vince McMahon.
Yes, agreed. 100%.
Absolutely, my friend. And then we have All Elite Wrestling. Once
I
again,
laugh. I laugh because well, you know what? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gerald, and then
no problem. I
I'll
was just going to
chime
give
in.
you props again. Once again, I'm still with John Orlando from the PVD cast. While he's not laughing at me or laughing about AEW, he is still hosting some awesome podcasts. You got to go ahead and check out at thepvdcast.com. All Elite Wrestling has been the flavor of the month for 2 years straight. No problems, rising in the ratings, becoming a very stalwart challenger to the WWE throne. What didn't couldn't doesn't have there were still missing pieces so that they could never really get over that hump yet, because they still have a million more viewers that they need to do on a regular basis before you can really start talking about them challenging. But there's good signs. They're selling out a lot of their TV tapings. They're
Mhm.
really drawing well on their pay-per-views. They are going to be the second wrestling company in the United States, first time that's happened in a long time, to earn over $100 million in a year in revenue. So that's something that really has not happened since the golden days of WCW. So those are the good things that are going on right now. But this past weekend, and actually in the weeks leading up to it, with all the disarray behind the scenes between all the infighting that's going on, the possibility of WWE reaching out and trying to tamper with the AEW wrestlers to try and convince them to come over and jump to WWE, the in closed door meetings that President Tony Khan has had to make, and then on top of everything else, the booking has been really bad leading up to All Out in regards to what they did with CM Punk and John Moxley. Why? I'm not mad that I was mad that they had their World Unification title on title bout on television, but I was kind of mad about that. But I was really mad when it only lasted 3 minutes, only
Hmm.
to go ahead a little over a week later, and go the opposite way. I don't get it. We'll get into all the backstage stuff in a second, but the booking has been very, very suspect. I'm really going to say that out loud, and that gives me quite concerns for the future as far as what direction do they truly want to go into.
Well, first, I will give credit to AEW that I like the idea of an interim champion. I think that that's great. They're borrowing from UFC, but
You
I
like it
think that
better than I do because I don't like interim
you're
champions.
okay. I like it. I think it's something different. But
I think if
with
you're
that,
out with injury, you're out with injury. Like for instance, Thunder Rosa's out with injury. Just go ahead and have a tournament or a three-way dance or whatever. Give that person a title, and then when that person comes back from injury, give them a shot at the title.
and that's the way they've done it. That's why I think this is more ingenious and innovative. But here's the problem. This is where they're screwing it up. You don't need a storyline. Punk and Moxley didn't need to have a match. Okay, they could have just saved it for the
They didn't need to
pay-per-view.
have a 3 minute match.
Right. Look, you have the world champion, the interim champion. That's your storyline. We're going to have them fight. Someone's coming out the undisputed champion. That's all you need. We didn't need any of these other things that had to happen between Mox and Punk. Didn't need any of that stuff. It could have just been simply this. These two guys have who's the true world champion? There you go. So that would have eliminated all this weird booking that made no sense whatsoever, um,
And then
leading
again,
up to it.
it led to All Out where Moxley and Punk faced off yet again, and Punk regains the title in a actually more familiar match, 15, 18 minutes. It went a longer distance and actually was a pretty good match between the two. MJF came back and out at the end, and somehow he's going to be the next contender without giving Moxley a return match, which still boggles my mind. Why doesn't Moxley get a return match if he was the one that just beat CM Punk 8 days ago? I don't understand that dynamic, but MJF, you and I have wanted to become a heel champion for a while, but that was before he got destroyed by Wardlow, and there's a pattern here, and it really kind of it goes back to some strange booking. Okay, if you're going to push Wardlow and make him really something special, okay, and you've got MJF getting the title away from Punk, that's okay. I understand that that's your end goal, but I don't know. Just sometimes the way that they go ahead and have booked over the past 6 months has been quite questionable. Since the actual brilliant way that they booked CM Punk versus MJF the first time, it's pretty much gone downhill from there.
Well, they shot themselves in the foot with MJF. Gerald, think about the ratings you could have pulled if you just waited a couple of weeks to reveal that the Joker was him. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
this week on Dynamite, who is the Joker? You could still have him around, and people want to know who it is, and you could
He could do
milk
those
that.
Black Scorpion from back in the day
Yes,
type interviews.
absolutely. You could milk that for several weeks. And
Or
while
play
you're doing
clips of
that,
that or play clips of that voicemail like they did with Tony Khan promising MJF. You could put hints at that on
mm-hmm,
the actual Dynamite shows, which are
mm-hmm,
sorely in need of some boost of that type of content.
absolutely. So they shot themselves in the foot with MJF, where they shot themselves in the foot. I'll say it again for Moxley and Punk. Why they had to have all the miscellaneous hoopla behind that is beyond me. And now you're hearing all these things of unhappy individuals in the back.
Oh, that leads me into the thing where after the match, CM Punk won. He has this press conference and he goes off on people accusing him of moving Scott Colton, aka Colt Cabana, off of AEW into ROH because of the issues they've had. Then he complains about that. He complains about the issues he has with the EVPs, aka executive vice presidents, which are Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. That's been a long-standing, you either love them or you hate them type deal. So I'll leave that one alone. And he went off. He went off on a tirade that was probably the most interesting thing of the entire evening for AEW. And that's the problem. If that is the most interesting thing and that's not planned and scheduled, which sometimes works well for pro wrestling, that's not saying much as far as the big pay-per-view that you just put on, if that is even more interesting by far and away than what you put on AEW this weekend.
You are speaking the truth because I watched the pay-per-view. I decided to go and watch it at a friend's house. And as I wrote down again, you have to stop with these super long pay-per-views.
5 hours. I mean, WWE
5 hours.
They learned their lesson. The AEW has not.
No. And so you're absolutely correct. By the end of the pay-per-view, I was so tired, so exhausted that I didn't really enjoy the main event. And some of the other matches that were on the show, again, not really interesting either because they are so long. That tag team title match for the AEW tag team titles, I like both those teams. I like Swerve and Our Glory. I like the Acclaimed. But my man, you can't go 23 minutes. It wears you out when it's false finish after
Should
false
Jericho
finish.
at 50 plus years old be going 20 minutes now?
No. Again, I don't know why it's so looked down upon. Have an 8-minute match on a pay-per-view. You still can get everything in that you need to get in. You can tell a great story and move on. But I agree. This media scrum, which I have some strong opinions about, was the best thing that AEW did over the weekend.
So go for it. Share your thoughts on this, my friend, because even after that media scrum, there was a alleged fight, actual real life fight between the Young Bucks and CM Punk. And if you heard the words from CM Punk that he indicated in that press conference, you'll understand why there's a lot of heat backstage. It's new, as they say, it's nuclear heat, but inside the offices, back behind the scenes, it's not out. They're getting MJF heat behind the scenes, and that's not necessarily what you want to do for a wrestling company right now that's trying to build and stay cohesive. It's all over the place right now for Tony Khan. I don't know, and I'm not sure exactly if he can handle it or manage it by himself. It looks like he needs to bring someone in that might be able to help clean things up.
He's lost total control of that company.
Yes.
Okay.
The inmates are running the asylum.
They are. But even with that being said, Gerald, I still think that there's a little bit of a work involved in all of this.
Always when it comes to wrestling.
I believe that Cabana and Punk don't get along, and Punk was blamed maybe just, because people were running their mouths about his situation? Yes, I believe that happened. Okay. Do I believe that
that's documented in court?
Right, that's documented in court. It's right there. Do I believe that Hangman Page went off script and did his promo so many weeks ago? That I don't buy. I kind of just feel like that's a little bit of a work. I think that everybody knew that was going to happen. I think that it makes for a great story. The fight being legitimate, I'm kind of on the fence about. I'm like,
I would have loved to have seen it. Why don't you just do it right there on stage?
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
And if you got some shiners, you got some blood, saying, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'll believe that then.
Yeah. So I think there's a pretty. I'm going to say it. I'm going to go 75-25.
Well, let's say like Vince McMahon coming out of a Montreal dressing room with a black eye and coming, totally out of it because he just had a concussion.
Right.
That would be
that right. I would agree. I feel like, though, the bigger problem is what I said at the beginning. The truth is that Tony Khan is letting the inmates run the asylum. I mean, that's evident by something that has been proven to be accurate, is that, for an example, Eddie Kingston, there have been documented stories that he's had to have several kind of conversations about, this is not 1982. You can't sit in the locker room and say insulting things to people and get away with it. You just can't do that. That's not how it works anymore. That's documented because that should not happen. That should happen once, and then Tony Khan should step in and say, "Listen, Eddie, you cannot do this, or you're going to face this consequence. You can't tell people that to leave the business because you don't like how they wrestle. Can't do that. All right." Same in this instance. The rumor is Punk gets to kind of just run wild with whatever he wants to do creatively. Again, while that might work for you, also there's got to be a stop. There's got to be something that can stop you. And I think about it from like a WCW standpoint. When everybody had creative control, think what that did to that company. You don't have anybody that's strong enough, that's brave enough, that's smart enough, whatever, to sit down and go, no, you cannot do this because it's not going to be beneficial in the long run.
It's getting close to, my friend, the words that are always prophetic. History can repeat itself.
Yeah.
And it's looking like it's getting close to doing just that. And that's coming on the heels of a possible new TV deal in the not too distant future in the next, 12 to 18 months that they'll be
Mhm.
negotiating with either Warner Brothers or some other streaming entities. So that's something that they have to be aware of, to not let this group that they have that is showing such promise fall. MJF, his situation, he does not look thrilled to be there at all. It's not just looking like a heel. It's not just looking like he's going to make everybody angry. He just does not look like he's happy at all being there. Doesn't matter if you're going to drop the title on his waist or his shoulder. I still think that right now it's a bad situation. I'm rooting for MJF because I really think he's one of the best characters on the planet. But we'll see what happens there. CM Punk, again, you can love him or hate him. He's there. He's adapted by the people. He's one of the biggest draws, if not the biggest draw for the company. But they've got a lot of good things going for them. But the problem is, right now, it seems to be all going astray because of what's going on behind the scenes, which you and I actually kind of love the most.
Well, and the two things I was going to mention is one, you mentioned that MJF doesn't look happy there. Well, he wouldn't be because number one, he had a salary issue, and number two, they've put it. And don't get me wrong, I love Stokely Hathaway. I think he is a great manager. He is something that this industry needs. Okay,
Yes.
one of those heelish
But he's
managers.
not a good fit with MJF. MJF was
No.
leading his own group, Pinnacle, at one
Yes.
point in time. So how does this benefit MJF as far as any of these other guys alongside with him? He was leading the
Absolutely.
group in the past. Now you're asking him to work with somebody else. Stokely Hathaway is good, but on, managing his own guys, and as MJF needs no mouthpiece
No.
because he's a
Absolutely
mouthpiece
not.
unto himself.
Absolutely. So I guess the question that we have to ask and the question that we're going to have to keep an eye on is how does Tony Khan right the ship? How does he get things back under control? And I think you hit the nail on the head. Is I think and I don't know how the structure is backstage at AEW. He needs help. He needs those veteran presence. He needs people like I'll throw out a name. He needs Christopher Daniels to help him out. A guy who's been around a very long time, a guy that knows every level of professional wrestling, from the lowest indies to the highest companies. He's obviously maybe not wrestling as much as he once did. I don't want to be disrespectful to his career's over, but he could be something that you lean on. You can get some of these other individuals, Kevin Nash, get him to come in and lean on to be part of the creative team. You got to start delegating. I mean, you got to start delegating. Otherwise, I don't see this situation changing.
I don't see it changing in the near future either, unless something radically changes. And if CM Punk is unwilling to really work with MJF, as he noted in his press conference, and also work with the elite, as he noted in his press conference, and working with many of the top individuals, as he noted in his press conference, that's going to make it really hard because he's your champion going forward. And after what has happened, the bad booking, all aside, AEW still has its biggest gate, or one of its biggest gates ever, that they're coming off of at All Out, and one of their most financially profitable ones. So for them to continue that momentum, they're going to go ahead and have to right that ship and right it very soon.
And I do take umbrage that CM Punk had to call out the Pittsburgh Penguins during that scrum, by the way. That was uncalled for.
Yeah, that was uncalled for. But he did mention the bakery where he got those muffins, and I thought that was pretty cool because,
Yeah, that's right.
it was in Chicago. So the only thing was, though, he said that they were closed Monday and Tuesday. If I was at bakery, I would have opened that next day.
Oh,
Yes,
absolutely. You
absolutely. But I will tell you, it's great to talk to you, my friend. I wish we could talk for an entire hour, but Disney and Star Trek preclude, unfortunately, for this weekend. But before we head on out, you got to go ahead and drop the knowledge on everyone on what you're doing at your awesome show, the PVD Cast. One of
well,
your many shows that you go ahead and
yeah, one of
partake
my
in.
many shows I work on. I don't know if that makes me a smart person or a dumb person. I don't know.
I'm not going to say a
Um,
word because I partake in a few myself.
so you feel my pain.
I do.
Of course, the PVD Cast is my main podcast. It's available at pvdcast.com or wherever you find great quality podcasts. Got a lot of great interviews. In fact, I just had one that's a little bit of a different subject. I spoke to Maria Daniels, who is here in Ohio. She is an entrepreneur and a podcaster. And actually, she does lots of things. I don't know how the woman sleeps at night. She's got tons of different businesses that she successfully runs. And so we sit down and talk a little bit about small businesses and, what are some of the challenges? What are some of the successes, failures, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, I also run this little bizarre podcast called Matt Talk that is all about that fabulous 80s television show, Matlock. And those episodes drop over on anchor.fm/Matt Talk. And so if you've ever enjoyed the Andy Griffith show, Matt Talk or Matlock, Matlock, check it out.
I will mention to you that you sent a DM confirming your availability today at 2 o'clock in the morning, my time. Would have been bad that I answered or could have answered that message. And I was contemplating it and I was thinking, would he think ill of me if I answered it at 2 o'clock my time in the morning?
Do you wait a minute?
Because it was
I didn't
five
even
o'clock your time, I think. So I think it's
Yeah,
2 on
and
mine.
I'll be honest, now that you mention it, I can't believe I did that because I try to be very conscientious about time zones.
I'm always
I'm
editing.
sorry, Gerald. I
I'm
didn't
always
mean
editing. I'm always editing, and I'll just leave it at that. But once again, it's John Orlando from the PVD Cast. John, I will tell you, we've got to go ahead and do a state of pro wrestling for
I know.
October.
I
After
know.
this, all this aftermath of what's gone on with AEW and WWE, what's going on there as far as them growing their product, AEW, and what's going on with theirs. If nothing really breaks until October, we will sit down for a full hour of the state of pro wrestling. I promise the fans that they do like it. I do see the response and I do see the downloads. So it is something I think a lot of people enjoy. So I'll tell you what, John, if everything goes well leading before Survivor Series and the turkey time, we'll go ahead and do a state of pro wrestling before the Survivor Series. That I pretty much can guarantee.
Absolutely. Love it. It's a great idea. Let's book it.
There you go. Book it indeed. I'll get my turkey ready there for you. Once again, it's John Orlando from the PVD Cast. No backstage behind the scene animosity or nuclear heat here. But
No,
I'll tell you what, there's nothing but love between us as far as good talking right there for you about the state of pro wrestling. And it's the state of pro wrestling that we bring to you each and every time out right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.